Focus. Ideate. Innovate. Enable.
Presented by Policy Bazaar.
CNBC TV 80, the Policy Bazaar Insurance Show.
Do you know that each year the cost of medical services in India is increasing by 14%? That's nearly 3.5 times India's total inflation. Today, the cost of treating any critical illness can easily exhaust all your life savings in one go. A report from Niti Aayog says that 7% of India's population, or about 10 crore people, are pushed into poverty each year because of the money that they spend on healthcare. Despite these striking numbers, the biggest irony remains that 65% of the healthcare expenses still happen out of pocket. The reason? Low health insurance coverage, or even worse, no health insurance coverage. Hello everyone, I am Yash Jain, and in today's episode of the Policy Bazaar Insurance Show, we focus on why health insurance is much more than just premium growth numbers and how it's the only reactive way to secure the life of yours and your loved ones. On this discussion, we are joined in the studio by Mayank Bathwal, the MD and CEO of Aditya Birla Health Insurance Company, Anand Roy, MD and CEO at Star Health Insurance, and of course, Sarbvir Singh, Joint Group CEO at PB Fintech. Mayank, I want to start this discussion with you. There are some people who think that they will buy health insurance policy whenever they need it, whenever the need arises. There are some who think that if they have the resources that are needed to take care of the healthcare expense, they don't need a health insurance policy. There are some people who think that buying a health insurance policy is actually anticipating an untoward incident with the health. I want to understand from you how terribly misplaced are all these three thoughts and what should be the right approach to look at health insurance in India.
Firstly, your opening point on medical inflation. The fact that in India, we have the highest medical inflation in the world.
Correct.
Second, if a healthcare event were to happen, unfortunately, we want the best quality treatment for our loved ones, right? I mean, we don't want to compromise on that. Even if it means we have to take a loan, we have to borrow, we have to, put our hand into our saved funds and take that out. We don't want to compromise. Best doctor, best facility, best treatment. And I think times, unfortunately, for people who thought that, this will not happen to me, or, I can buy later, times like COVID has shown that, an event of health, treatment can happen to anyone at any point of time. Also, we must remember that, with the kind of lifestyle diseases that we are seeing in India today, because of our fooding habits, because of our genetic construct, because of, the kind of lifestyle we live, the disease pattern is changing very rapidly. And therefore, to think that, I'll buy later on, what if something happens to you and then you're not eligible for a cover? And even if you have money and you can save it, would you really want to kind of use that for an event which could have been funded by a product where the cost of that product is not really
Meaningful.
I mean, it's not a big cost. I mean, if you think about it, in 25,000, you can get a reasonable cover today, in health insurance. So I would really encourage all our listeners today that please don't postpone. Buy it today and buy it now.
But Sarbvir, just to speak about something that we've gone through, we've not wasted a pandemic, at least from the point of view of health insurance. Today, as you see, as we've moved away from that stage, do you think that the discussion has shifted from why do I need health insurance to how much of health insurance cover do I need today?
See, COVID was the mother of all wake-up calls. I don't think anyone would have, scripted it better from a wake-up call perspective. I think it taught us a few lessons. One is that you must have adequate health insurance. So it's not enough to just have a policy. You need to make sure that, let's say you live in a metro city, you have at least 10 lakhs of coverage. I would in fact suggest that viewers should look at, upwards of 50 lakhs, 1 crore kind of coverage, which is easily available these days. I think the second thing that COVID taught us is that nobody is immune. See, earlier there was a feeling that if I'm young, if I'm, let's say, below 30 or 35, I really don't need health insurance because what can happen to me? I think now it's very conclusively been proven that everybody needs health insurance and everybody needs adequate cover. So we've definitely seen that awareness for health insurance has grown and awareness for the right amount of health insurance.
Correct. Anand, I want to come to you. And what I want to understand from you is that the regulator very recently spoke about how the cap on the age has to be removed when it comes to buying health insurance. Do you think that the industry together will be able to deliver a good product for this particular section, and most importantly, at an affordable price?
Health insurance for senior citizens was available earlier. There were various companies, including ours, which had plans dedicated for senior citizens health insurance. But I think now with these regulations, it will become even more compelling for all companies to bring about products for this segment of the society. As far as affordability is concerned, I think senior citizens as a segment will definitely, the products that are available today are reasonably affordable. There are innovative features in various products like copay, sharing of risks, so that you keep the cost under control. And in general, insurance is a business of large numbers. As more and more senior citizens buy health insurance, I think insurance companies will find ways to keep the products affordable and accessible to this segment. All the viewers watching this show should think about their loved ones, their parents, their in-laws, their uncles, their aunts, and try to cover them through health insurance plans immediately.
Absolutely. Sarbvir, to sort of now move to another aspect and to speak about two extremes in that sense. One is critical illness cover, and the second one is about OPD covers. Now, I was just going through some numbers while looking into the topic. What I found was half of the people don't understand critical illness cover at all, whereas 30% of them have never heard of something like critical illness. But at the same time, what's positive is that 4 out of 5 people surveyed were ready to buy critical illness cover if they were explained how it helps them. Now, what I want to understand from you is that is awareness the biggest issue here when it comes to such very important elements?
So I think, yes, you touched upon a very important point. See, the challenge with critical illness covers is that there is a lack of understanding and awareness that where do they play. Now, the reason they're very important is that I think all of us would agree that we all see larger and larger people who have a critical illness. Now, what is a critical illness? It could be cancer, it could be something related to your heart or something like that. Now, when a critical illness strikes, there are two problems. One is that obviously you have to pay for the cost of hospitalization, which if you have a properly managed health insurance policy will be taken care of. But the second thing is that you lose income, right? And at that time, the expenses of getting cured, the fact that at that time you're not able to work, etc., is also a challenge. So I think a critical illness policy is not only required just from a hospital indemnity cost perspective, but is also required because it acts at that time as some kind of replacement of income.
But Anand, one question to you on the other side of it. The pandemic also showed us how important OPD covers became. Now, as we moved away from that phase, in your experience, are these OPD covers as relevant as they were back then in terms of the demand and understanding of people? And I mean, if you simply have to put how important these OPD covers can become for policyholders, how would you put that?
Traditionally, health insurance has always been looked upon as a hospitalization cover. Okay, and now that is changing. The dimension of health insurance, the innovation which companies are bringing, and one of them is definitely the OPD, the outpatient coverage. Now, outpatient is a large piece. Outpatient, out-of-pocket expenses, as you mentioned in your opening remarks, is more than 50% of the healthcare expenses in India. So how can insurance companies innovate products that covers these expenses? And these are, your typical doctor consultation, your diagnostic test, your health checkups, your medicines, your pharmacy bills. These all add up. Every year it adds up to a significant amount for every family. So I think now the OPD coverages are well available in the insurance domain. There are a lot of innovative products which is available in the market. I think the healthcare delivery models also have evolved after COVID, especially, things like telemedicine facilities, home healthcare facilities where hospital facilities are given at the home of the patients. I think these are innovations which is available today in the industry. And there are wonderful products which covers OPD very, very comprehensively. And customers should definitely consider buying these policies to have a more comprehensive and more wide coverage for their family members.
But Sarbvir, One question to you, and since you're neutral on this particular side, I'm putting this question to you. If someone wants to port their health insurance policy, you know, a lot of times this decision to port their health insurance policy, if you're not happy with the current policy, is dominated by the fact that the cost of another policy or an alternate policy is favorable, is cheaper. To your understanding, how important is it to look at other factors exclusive of the cost of that insurance policy?
See, many times customers are attracted by the fact that someone brings to their notice that there is another policy which is a little bit cheaper or than the policy that they have. Now, I believe that customers need to be a bit more long-term about their thinking. And the main reason is that, different companies have different pricing philosophies. Some people raise their price every year. Some people may raise their price in blocks of 3 years and things like that. So I think one should be careful, because if you just get attracted by the first price, you may unnecessarily, port into another policy and then find that the price will go up in the second year or third year. And then, you're a bit surprised because the price increase will be much higher, given the fact that it was once in 3 years. So I think price is just one variable. I think the features of the policy, and I would actually suggest that I would say that all the health insurance companies and the companies that offer health insurance in India are extremely well run, and I think they are very, very competent people. So largely the policy that you have is probably a very good policy for you, and you should try to stay within it. Only if there is a feature that is there in your policy, which, for instance, let's say is unlimited restoration or something, which is an important feature for you, but is not being offered, then the first thing I would do actually is to look at that same company and see whether they have policies which may have that feature, because everyone keeps refreshing their policies. So I think the features you will find in the market are largely similar. We find that all health insurance companies are pretty good about it. And I think it's best to try and stay within the same policy, within the same company. Now, if you do need to port, and if you feel, there's a very bad experience or there's a negative feeling, then I think you should compare not just for the first year, but look at the policy over a 2 or 3 year period and see the history of price inflation, see the history of how that company has been dealing with claims, etc., and only then port, rather than just looking at the first cost.
On that note, let's take a very, very short break. When we return, we talk about all the recent changes in the health insurance sector and how these changes will be a game changer for all you policyholders out there.
CNBC TV 80, the Policy Bazaar Insurance Show. CNBC TV 80, the Policy Bazaar Insurance Show.
Welcome back to the Policy Bazaar Insurance Show, and now we discuss a very important point from a policyholder point of view, how he should be more aware about the policy that he has. And the question is to you, Anand. A lot of people, after they buy a health insurance policy, hardly ever look back at it. What I want to understand from you is that what should be the journey of health insurance for an individual, and how should the coverage progress?
To just give you a context on what we believe is the right approach in terms of selecting your health insurance, let's say someone is getting into a job, it's a youngster, first job. We believe that he or she should definitely buy a health insurance covering themselves, because COVID has proven that anything can happen anytime, and it's always better to have a private health insurance rather than depending on only the corporate cover, which probably the employer may be giving. And as one moves on through various stages in life, gets married, plans for having a family, I think everyone should review their health insurance cover at least once in 2 to 3 years' time in terms of the coverage that they have and what is the benefits that their policies are providing. And there are additional add-on benefits which they can definitely opt for at the various stages of their life. For example, if they're planning to have a kid in a few years' time, they can go for a maternity cover, which will have definitely some waiting period. So they should plan ahead so that, they get the full benefit when they want to have it. And similarly, as they become middle-aged, they want to move up in their career. At that point of time, they should really think about having a critical illness cover. They should think about enhancement of their plans.
Anand, I just want to extend this question. What I want to understand from you is that time and again, we still hear arguments about how expensive health insurance premiums are getting. One question which all general insurance companies have been asking is that if it is such an important product, for the health of the country, for the health of its citizens, why do we end up paying so much GST on health insurance products? You think cutting down on GST is one of the big factors that will determine the coverage of health insurance in the coming years?
So Yash, this is a point which I'm sure all of us on the panel will agree upon, and definitely it is something that we are representing at various forums at the government level as well as the council levels. How do you increase penetration of health insurance if there is a 18% GST which is in the luxury category? It is not a luxury, it is a necessity for the society.
And this question's to you, Sarbvir. According to a very recent report which Policy Bazaar published, is India happy with health insurance claims? 70% of the reimbursement claimants said that they either turned to their financial assistance or drew upon their investments in absence of cashless claims. Do you think, enforcing cashless everywhere into regulations itself will lead to a better enforcement of it?
What our survey very clearly showed is that if there is a reimbursement claim, then 70% of customers had to dip into their saving or borrow money to pay for the claim. Now that, of course, sort of negates the purpose with which they had bought the insurance policy, and it makes the whole proposition very expensive. Now, why does one need to go beyond the network, or why does one need to take a reimbursement claim? There can be many reasons. See, sometimes it can be an emergency. Sometimes it could be a doctor that you would want to get treated by who may not be in a hospital, which has cashless. So I think more and more that we can make the claims process cashless, I think the better off we'll be. And I think it really, really increases the trust that consumers have in health insurance.
But Mayank, I mean, and I would speak and I would ask this question as a policyholder. A lot of times we've seen that health insurance companies or insurance companies in general do not increase their premiums if the situation demands for it for about 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Suddenly, there is a very significant increase because they have to balance out those 3 years, and they do not increase it for those years to attract more and more customers into the pool. Now, as a customer or as a policyholder, it creates a big trust deficit for me because for 3 years, what would not pinch is a 2%, 5% increase. But what would actually pinch is that in the 5th year, if I see a 30% increase straight away. Do you think it does create a trust deficit amongst policyholders?
For any thing that we consume or buy, there is inflation, right? I mean, the price of what we consume as food or what we, you see as entertainment, it's not the same that it was, let's say 2 years back or 5 years back. So therefore, there's inflation for every product in the country. So therefore, there will be a price increase in insurance as well. If, our house view on that is that I think the ideal thing is to have what I call price for every year. Today, to make it convenient for consumers, we do also offer what is called banded price, in which case what you just said happens because there is a price for age band, let's say 45 to 49, 50 to 54. And I think, but there are products as well, like we have products where it is priced every year, different price for 54, 55, etc., etc. Because then I completely agree with you, the consumer knows that there is a 2, 3, 4%, 5% price increase every year. And if there is a real medical inflation, the price might increase a little bit more. I would strongly feel that, as an industry, if we can find a way to move towards every year price increase, because that creates, that a bit of predictability, and the consumer also sees that as not such a big increase.
Correct.
So, if we can move toward that, I think that will be consumer friendly. Having said that, from the consumer perspective, I think it's important that, again, that the consumer spends 15 minutes, half an hour, a little bit more in not just looking at the price of the product for the year for which they are buying for next 5 years.
Correct.
What is my price going to be? Because this is as long tenured a product as you can buy as a consumer till your end of life. So please do understand your total financial implication and not just the 1 year price that you end up paying and then getting disheartened when the price increases next year.
Sarbvir, one question to you. Why should a policyholder, in your words, look at something like a long-term health insurance policies favorably?
As you grow older, the cost of coverage, keeps going up. So one way of handling that increasing cost of coverage, especially at a time when, your income may or may not be the best, and you may have other requirements on your income, is to pay it forward, right? So in life insurance, in term insurance, there are policies which are level loaded. So you pay for 30 years, 40 years, and you pay the same premium. Now, health insurance, if you could, maybe we can't do it for 30, 40 years, but if we can do it for even 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, then it will allow a person to actually, budget for their next 5, 10, 15 years. Yes, they may have to pay a little bit higher upfront than they would have paid if they just bought a single year policy. But then the predictability and the fact that they don't have to worry about healthcare, inflation, etc. for 10 years or 15 years, I think will be a fantastic thing. So, again, we would love for some of these policies to be introduced. And I think, again, it will be very consumer friendly. And hopefully, consumers will have the maturity to buy these policies, because it will require a little bit of maturity to pay a little more upfront than you would pay with a 1-year policy.
But let's end this discussion with a little bit of insurance rapid fire. There are certain terms which policyholders should understand in their policy document, but often these terms are not understood. I will put 3 terms to both our insurers, Aditya Birla Health Insurance and of course Star Health Insurance. To start with Mayank, you, as rapid, one line understanding that you can give to policyholders. The first term is sum insured.
The maximum amount that you will get as payment from the insurance company for any health cost of yours during that year.
Waiting period.
It's the amount that period for which some of the benefits will not be available to you in the product.
Free look period.
It's the time that you have to decide whether you made the right purchase and then go back and say that maybe I don't need the product.
Anand, to you, co-payment. What is co-payment?
Co-payment is the amount which the customer has to bear from the overall claim payout.
Okay. Exclusion?
Exclusions are specific conditions which are not covered by the policy.
And finally, sublimit.
Sublimit is a cap within the overall sum insured for specific ailments or diseases.
Well, that's those 6 terms that you always have to watch out for in your policy document, and the understanding of which has been given by 2 of the biggest health insurance companies in the country. But with that, we come to an end of this episode of the Policy Bazaar Insurance Show. We hope that the discussion today does help our policyholders in deciding on their health insurance journey. Thank you so much for tuning in today.
CNBC TV 80, the Policy Bazaar Insurance Show.
Presented by Policy Bazaar.
Focus, ideate, innovate, enable.